Paddy. So it was a great turnout.
Go to line number 10. Good morning, George. You're on the air.
Hello, Paddy.
George, hello, sir.
How are you this morning?
Doing fine this morning. Thank you.
I'm calling you, Paddy. I don't know. I have mixed feelings. I feel as stunned as Sandy Collins when I went before that board the other day. He didn't know what he was talking about. He didn't know how to answer him. And I listened to Jim Morgan a day or so ago talk to you about generator business and so on, and Nalcor. Mm-hmm. And what Jim said made a lot of sense to me. It was, whether it was true or not, I take the man at his word. He seemed to know his facts. He seemed to know what he was talking about. And you listen to that kind of a thing and you say, boy, our government, God, they're representing us. They're using our money. We're paying a lot of money. And we've got a government. Are they doing things like that, paying exorbitant prices for things that nobody else wants? And are the people in the States who are selling this to brokers and so on, are they laughing to kill themselves with us? And you feel, I don't know how we feel, and I'm sure I'm speaking for hundreds of other Newfoundlanders when I say this, when you listen to that kind of thing going on.
What do you make of the answers that they gave you?
A lot of it, Paddy, you know as well as I, and they know it. A lot of it is because of that, I'll use the word, that bloody Bill 29. There's Mr. Collins yesterday, obviously, he was obviously humiliated there, But I say to myself, and I say to Mr. Collins, Bill 29, you are a minister of the government. You are behind it. We can't blame just Mr. Marshall or someone like that for it, or so we can't Cathy Dunderdale or the government before when that bill was instituted, and there was a loud outcry. And when you try to hide, you're doing a job for VOCM right now, and you're being paid, I don't know, it's a couple $100,000 for it.
I was.
But anyway, you're not saying to VOCM, now I'm going to do my job, but I'm not going to tell you anything about the way I'm going to do it and so on. And immediately, why aren't you? If you're doing what's right and what's half decent or what seems right, then why do you want to hide it from? Why there's Nalcor? And there's Nalcor. When Nalcor comes back, and I never heard you this morning, but I was reported to me that they came back and said, well, oh, no, we only paid $25 million for the generator, and the rest was for the installations or what have you. I said to myself, why do I mistrust him? Why do I disbelieve him? Because we don't know what they're doing. And why shouldn't we? I ask myself. I'm looking at an actor called John Cleese. That's all I know. His name is John Cleese. He made this statement, and I think probably he's right. He said, I find it rather easy to portray a businessman. Being bland, rather cruel, and incompetent comes naturally to me.
Yeah, some of those broad generalizations, I guess are applicable sometimes. A couple of things. Yes. Bill 29 isn't the legislation that protects Nalcor and their documents and the so-called issue of openness and transparency, but there is legislation that does indeed govern Nalcor and the public access to information. So that's one thing. The government is in a bad spot with Bill 29. They are going to pay the price for it now, and maybe, I guess the tale is yet to be told, at the ballot box come the general election. So they have a long road to hoe here. But when it comes down to, say, for instance, if I ask questions of Nalcor, and within, I don't know, it was like 36 hours or something, I got the answers back, are we at the point now where it's simply the mistrust, or people still are refusing to accept answers because they're offered by Nalcor, given how this project has played out? Because the answers were fairly forthright.
But see, Paddy, if we refuse to sort of believe it, it's their own fault, or it's government and Nalcor. We'll open them all together. They've gone all along. We can't tell you what we're doing. We're not allowed. And you immediately, it's human nature, Paddy, you immediately get your hackles up. Why can't you tell me? What is it you're doing? If you're doing it and doing a half-decent job and doing it right, why shouldn't... I'm the one who's paying the bill. I should know.
Oh, I think I should get an answer to every single question I have. Now, I know there's opportunities where there are some sensitive documents that needn't be released publicly until the time comes in.
There are only some of these. You can't hide everything.
No, you can't.
You can't hide it all because of that.
No, and I'm not even daring to suggest you can.
No.
But then we have these blanket things like the protection of ministerial briefing notes, and you can't get a look at them because we're somehow afraid, or the senior bureaucracy is afraid to be identified in their role, which I think is far too powerful anyway, in the policy of government. So there's a lot to this, George, and I understand people's position. I try to get answers. The tricky part for me is if I have a question posed by me and or through the contribution of others, and I go to get an answer, I get the answer is willfully dismissed out of hand, it does make it tricky for everyone, including Nalcor, the government, me, and the listeners.
Listen, I don't want to. I'm not the kind of person. I don't want to mistrust Nalcor. I don't want to mistrust Mr. Martin and Mr. Bennett and so on. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to. I like to think the best of people. But it really gets to me when it's frustration, I guess it is. It just as a vote, as a tax-paying individual right here, I'm paying a lot of taxes, and I'm afraid. And the muskrat follows me. I won't get into it, Paddy, because we talked about it, and it's with us. But boy, that's more than frustrating. I heard a man call you the other day, and that's and the people. I don't know, Paddy. I go back to when it started. It started when Miss Dunderdale became the Premier, and she latched onto this idea, and it was great. And I said to myself, rightly or wrongly, she got into it so deep she couldn't backtrack then. You'd lose all credibility. You've got to carry on. And boy, that seems to be a bad deal, any way you want to look at it. And yet Mr. Martin and Mr. Bennett, they talk about the pouring of the concrete and so on, and I hear the prices that is being paid for. God, Paddy, and I look at my bill and I say, George, my sound, goodness, in the name of God, you're going to pay the bill one of those days when it comes in.
Yeah, we all get the bills. I don't have the blanket mistrust of Nalcor. I simply don't. Now, people will condemn me for that, but that's up to them.
No.
I, like everybody else, has questions. When we don't get an answer, we should be frustrated and cynical about it. But when we do get answers, it doesn't mean that you have to, out of hand, dismiss them as lies. I think sometimes we've exaggerated some of these things. Not you necessarily, sir, but a lot of people. But anyway, we'll keep looking.
Yeah, I don't do it, Paddy. As I said, I try to make myself believe that it's all right, but at the same time, I get so many questions not answered satisfactorily, and I guess my call to you, as I said, I'm dumb. I don't know what I'm talking about, but it's just a call of frustration. I figure Paddy got all the answers.
Well, no, if I have them, I'll spit them out. But when I don't have them, I'll go get them.
You've got a great program.
Appreciate your time this morning.
Yes, and I enjoy listening to it.
Thanks very much, George.
And I expect you'll hear back from Mr. Morgan about that, about Nalcor's response.
Oh, I don't doubt it, and I'm happy to provide him with the information, because if it's sent to me, that means it's up for public consumption. Whoever wants it, you send me an email, I'll forward it along.
And Jim seems to have researched what he's saying. He seems to know a little bit about what he's saying.
Yeah, of course.
I think he does.
Well, and like both sides, I think we have a polarizing issue, and both sides are firmly entrenched in their position, and both sides mistrust each other. Both sides have done their fair shake of exaggerating, and that's where we are.
Yeah, and it's not a good situation, is it?
No, it's absolutely not a good situation.
No. Well, thank you, Paddy.
My pleasure, George. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.